Welcome to AM Muscle Maintenance with In Shape Fitness. I am Coach Kim. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's podcast is called Balance Wake Up. Your body is going to muster, do you know the word muster? Get up and get going in the morning faster if you take good care of it. So does that sound like a catch-22? It kind of does because it sort of is one. But it's true that to get healthier, you actually have to do healthy things. You have to act with health in mind every single day. Forget about the nonsense that you've been told that you can get by with a couple of days a week in the gym with, some New Year's resolutions and some adherence to really strict nutritional guidelines in January, and then maybe again right before you have to put a bathing suit on, and then maybe again right before the holidays at the end of the year. You need to move your butt, your legs, your back, your head, and your arms every single day. Unless, of course, you have really specific limitations in terms of your body physique. You can get a medical clearance, two thumbs up from your doctor to do some form of exercise, even if you have disabilities. So what these podcasts involve are topics related to the muscle maintenance that you need to dedicate to every single day. And today we're focusing on balance because there are a lot of really great exercises that you can do that don't require, first, they never require equipment. That's one of the hallmarks of this program and the sister program, the In Shape Fitness Show. These podcasts are always about ways to stay healthy, to get your body moving without equipment, without a treadmill, without weights, without bands. Now, you might need to put a mat down on the floor if it's hard, but you don't need anything, and that includes shoes on your feet and fancy clothes. It is also a complete fallacy that you need to be dressed in fitness apparel in order to move your body and stay healthy. Now, if you're going out in August for a long run, if you're going for a run, or if you are, going to play tennis, or if you are whatever, you're going to put some exercise athletic wear on, that's fine. But in the morning, what I do is get out of my bed, I'm in my pajamas, I put the coffee on, I have a sip of water, and I move myself to my floor or a spot in my apartment or wherever I am to spend about 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes of time with my body, getting in touch with everything that revolves around my physical health for the day. And the first thing that I do is think about the vestibular system, and that is your sense of balance. I actually have a story to tell you about. Well, it relates to the book that I wrote, which is not out yet. It's at an editor's. You guys probably know this. I'm like a bootstrapped girl here with my company in New York City. And I wrote a book last year called Darwin on the Treadmill. And I am seeking a publisher, but I have a formal official editor that is getting back to me before the end of January. Hopefully it will be on the market at some point here in the spring. But one thing I write about is the way that In Shape Fitness, the way my company and I describe the functional movement patterns that we utilize to create exercise regimens that really provide you with complete bodily movement health in every single session that we do. And balance is one of those 8 things. But I came up with this sort of goofy thing that I like to do and suggest to people to do, which is to find time wherever you are. Maybe it's in the privacy of your own home, but standing on one leg is something that I tend to do on the subway platform. I don't do it on a riding a moving vehicle. But standing while you're waiting for the subway, you see people on their phones if you're in New York City or any other city with a subway. You might check people reading a book. You might see people talking to each other. Or more often than not, you are also seeing people like sort of looking at their watch and then looking up maybe at a clock that indicates when the train might be coming into the station. They've got their hand on their hip and they're frustrated because they're in a rush. And I always am as well, but I try not to sort of shift my body weight and lean in on one side of the body with both feet on the ground, because one of the things that's really bad about that posture is anatomically it's just really way wrong. It hurts from your head all the way down to your legs. You've got deviations within the spine, within the shoulder mechanisms. Your pelvic girdle is tilted and funky. It puts more pressure on one leg, likely your dominant leg, than the other. So you do a lot of really weird things to your body by standing and waiting, whether you're standing in line at the supermarket or, as you know, we're in New York City where we stand around and wait for the subway, in some cases a long time. But standing on one leg while you're waiting for the subway gives you something to do. And so I started doing that, and someone I know called me a flamingo, and so I ended up writing about flamingos in my chapter about balance in my book, Darwin on the Treadmill. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but let's start. If you can, just take a couple of seconds right now to sit up straight or stand up straight, whether you're sitting or standing, obviously. If you are sitting and you can stand, that would be great. Let's talk just through the postural systems check. This is one of the hallmarks of the posture and balance work that we do, and it relates simply to your level of awareness of where your body is in space. You know, when you first wake up, this happens to me at least, I wake up to an alarm clock, pretty typical. I'm not, sort of just like the sun is out and I open my eyes kind of person. I need an alarm. I get up really early, but I do get up. But it does take a few moments, unless I've had a really sort of weird dream or been awoken by something other than my alarm. I tend to, lie there thinking, oh God, I wish it was the weekend. I wish I could just press the snooze button or just go back to bed or whatever. I do have to take a second to turn on my brain enough to get out of the bed, make sure that the alarm clock is actually turned off, because I have been known to leave it on. And then I stumble my way out of my bedroom and down to my the other end of my apartment, where I turn on the coffee. I go to get a glass of water or whatever, and then I find myself on the floor of the living room. And the ability for the brain to really turn on all the different systems, right? To think about where the position of the head is in relation to the neck and the shoulders. So you've got that shelf, your shoulder shelf, if you will, of the clavicle, right? That sits in sort of horizontally parallel to the ground, but perpendicular to your spine. And your head is meant to sit in the middle of this, sort of, I guess, a pedestal, really. It's quite remarkable, actually, that the cervical part of your spine, the actual vertebra, are quite small. There's what really holds your head up is the very complicated and highly well-engineered tensile ligaments and tendons, all the soft tissues that create tension through their connections with the spindly spine. And that's where your head sits, because your head is pretty heavy. It weighs like 10 or 11 pounds. And when your head is forward, which is actually something that's quite frequently observed nowadays, you're pulling on the back part of your head, pulling the muscles at the top of the back of your neck, and then collapsing not just the muscles in the front of your body through your throat. You've got some other really important pieces of anatomy. You've got your larynx, your esophagus and larynx, the respiration and digestion, plus your thyroid is there, and all of that whole area. If your head is forward and you're kind of flexing the front part of your spine a little bit, you're restricting some of that, sort of fluid capacity that you need to have in the front of your your neck. So making sure that your head is lined up with your neck properly by the ears and the shoulders, sort of being in one straight line, is the best way to position your head. Then your shoulders are back, of course. That helps open up the chest. And you also want to think about the position of your pelvis. So you can put your hands on your hips and think about the tilt of your pelvis if it is tilted forward and your butt sticks out. And you can exaggerate the movement with the tilt and the tuck and the tilt and the tuck to just get a sense for the variance between the two extremes. And then find yourself in the middle, in the neutral position. Now, as you go down towards the floor, obviously your legs are not exactly the same. And I've said this many times as well. I already said it once in this podcast, in fact, actually, that you're probably right-handed. And what that means is that you're right dominant. And that often means that your right leg is stronger, but it does also mean that you can easily injure it or develop suffering in pain and sort of chronic type of injuries through your right leg if you continue the practice of not exercising and getting some multi-dimensional movement into your lifestyle, because you develop something I also write about in Darwin on the Treadmill. It's called lame left leg syndrome. That's what I coin it. And it's sort of a bit of a, ironic and somewhat jokey way to describe what happens to right-handed people in terms of the use of their left legs. But I do see it all the time especially with people that try to exercise, but also still have sedentary lives. Okay. So you've got to be really careful about your posture in terms of your right leg and your left leg. And then finally with your feet, in terms of this very long postural systems check, you want to make sure that your feet point forward. A lot of people turn their toes out as they're standing still. And then if you go, even if you're trying to exercise and you do like a regular standard squat, if your inclination is and you have no control over your feet turning out, you've got some really overuse muscle activity, as well as some muscles that really need to be activated and need to get their head in the game, if you will, in terms of making sure that there's some efficiency in your movement, whether you sit down and then stand up. So the feet pointing forward, making sure that your heels and toes are lined up is really, really important. All right, so back to the flamingo for a minute. Your ability to balance on one leg is not at all like a flamingo. So the work that I did, the research that I did for the book about flamingos was meant to sort of help people understand that we are not the only living creatures that are able to stand on one leg, though we are almost the only living creatures that stand on one leg or can or whatever. Flamingos or birds actually in general can do this. Not so much some of the sort of tubby birds, the bigger birds like ducks. You don't see those kinds of birds standing on one leg that much, but flamingos tend to stand on one leg a lot, which is one of the things that made me so curious. I wanted to know why they did that. And it turns out that there was somebody else that was interested in this. Someone in academia who was researching why flamingos might stand on their right leg or their left leg, and what the purpose of standing on one leg was. And when it turns out, unlike the human, which as you're listening to me, why don't you try this? If you can stand on one leg, I'll tell you when it's time to lift up your left leg. If you need to, hold something close by. See if you can stand up on one leg for 30 seconds. Your time starts now. And so if the flamingo tucks one leg up underneath the feathers, one of the things that it's doing is regulating the internal conditions of its body, the temperature and pressure inside of its body. And so it turns out, looking into this a little bit further, these academics, you've got 4 seconds, by the way, 3, 2, and rest for a couple seconds. Now, take note, just a mental note, but take mental note of the fact that when you stand on one leg, and this is why I do it a lot, you also are forced to pull in your belly button, tuck in your tailbone, push your shoulders back, and breathe in an efficient way. That is an enormous step for you to take in terms of something that has an impact on the quality of your life, and something that you can do every day without disturbing every other thing that you're doing during the day. Who cares if you're standing on one leg when you're standing still? I mean, honestly, people look at you a little funny, maybe, but so what? it is good for you. Then try the other leg. So your time starts now for another 30 seconds. You might note, another mental note here, that it probably is harder for you to stand on your left leg if you're right-handed. It may not, however, be easier for you to stand on your left leg if you're left-handed. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that is. And very few people are left-handed, so I'm not going to really go into them. However, I'm left-handed and I'm a runner, and I have all kinds of weird transference between the two sides of my body. If you are left-handed and you have fitness questions, let me know, because I have done a lot of research in this area as well. But anyway, so if you are holding for 30 seconds, your time is up now. So that, again, is really great. You should really be able to do 30 seconds on each leg, but very few people have the same stability. And even if you were able to pull off the 30 seconds, the other thing that you want to think about is whether you were more wobbly on one leg or the other. Again, these are really, really important things to just sort of note for yourself. You can write them down and have a little fitness log. I keep a fitness grid for myself, mostly for running purposes, but little things like, having a twingy foot, having a little funky feeling in your knee. Those are helpful pieces of information that you may find useful if you endeavor to start moving more and develop, some more ambitious plans in terms of what your goals can be. I have the goal of running 2 marathons this year, and that is a first for me. I've run 7 marathons and I've coached 9 marathons, but I have never run 2 in 1 year. So I'm pretty excited this year that I'm going to be doing 2 marathons. So I am gearing up for the first one, which I'm not registered for yet. I'm trying to even build up the confidence to make the commitment and actually sign up for it. So you'll have to follow me along in terms of when I announce that and where it's going to be, somewhere on the East Coast, close to New York, probably. Anyway, so we did the one-legged balance. There's another exercise a second one that I want to have you do on your feet in terms of your balance, and that is called the Lighthouse. It is another one of the regulars. If you listen to these podcasts fairly frequently, I don't steer too far away from the regular stuff that I know makes a huge difference in your life. And so the Lighthouse is something that you can also do right when you wake up in the morning. You stand up really tall and you do a postural systems check. That's always good to do. I don't count that as one of the 5 exercises, by the way. You extend your arms out to the sides so that your arms are perpendicular to your body, horizontal and parallel to the floor, and your palms face down. And then you stand up real tall, pull in your belly button, and now you want to turn your head slowly, turn your head all the way to the right until you gaze down the length of your arm, and all the way to the left. And the beauty of this, if you can do with 2 feet right next to each other, if you're not at all unstable by doing this, if it doesn't make you dizzy, if you're perfectly stable when you turn your head, you should stagger your feet so that you can become unstable, right? So you have you have a movement. You want to make sure you're stable in that movement. And then if you are, you destabilize yourself a little bit so that you can trigger the functional components inside your body that have to restabilize yourself again. That is exercise. Again, it doesn't have to be a boot camp. It doesn't have to be an intense, CrossFit or high octane aerobics types of class. You can do little things every day and make an impact on the quality of your life. And that is what exercise is supposed to be about. So the Lighthouse, you stagger your feet once you get all the way to heel to toe. If you're not already, turn your head again, try again, and make sure with any exercise where one foot is doing a different level of effort than the other, you want to make sure that you balance it out by switching your feet. So with your right foot in the rear, right-handed people, you're going to find it a little easier. And then you switch your feet so that the left leg is in the rear and it's a bit harder. Okay, I know your arms are going to get tired. I know your arms are getting tired. However, keep those arms up there. What I want you to try now, last standing move, and then we're going to do a couple of balance moves on the floor. Right now, what I want you to do is spin around slowly, 1 full revolution, clockwise. If you can do 2, great. If you can't spin around even 180 degrees, like half of a circle, without feeling dizzy, then we really want to work on your vestibular system. Now, again, if you have been diagnosed with any condition that relates to vertigo or anything related to your sense of balance, whether you're prone to falling down, all of those issues are issues you need to talk to your medical professionals about. But your vestibular system is really important, especially as you get older. It is one of the most significant reasons why people fear falling down and therefore stop moving as they get older. And it will make a huge difference in terms of your ability to continue moving as you get older. So those are the 3 exercises on your feet. Standing on one leg, and again, you hold the back of a chair, hold a wall, whatever, so that you can practice doing some one-legged stands, and then the lighthouse, and then the spinning around. The spinning top is what we call it. I don't have a better name for it. If you have a good name for spinning around, by all means, write me. Tell me what it is, because I would love that. Or find InShape Fitness on social media. All right, now get down on the floor to your hands and knees. Let's do 2 more quick exercises, and then you will be off and running for the week. So the first exercise is a bird dog. You're in quadruped, which means you're on your hands and your knees. You splay your fingers so that you distribute your body weight through your palm and your fingers, not just the heel of your hand. And then you make sure that your knees and your hips are in line, your shoulders and your wrists are in line. And then with the bird dog, this is a spinal extension exercise. So it's a stability movement that really focuses on the really small muscles that connect the vertebra to one another, right? As you go up the vertebra, there's a very, very small sliver of muscle that connects the vertebrae to each other. And this vertical movement, right arm, left leg, left arm, right leg, extend them straight out, not up, but straight out, so that the moving limbs are always parallel to the floor at their extremes. And then just switch back and forth. It will also tax your sense of balance, and it's a little engaging for your core. Good stuff, right? Very good. Okay. Couple more seconds here. The last exercise we're going to do is a dynamic dog. And the dynamic dog is not so much balance as it is awareness, because a downward facing dog is really easy. A lot of people know how to do that. All you do is put your feet down. Now you're lifting your butt up in the air, making a triangle essentially with your body, where the floor is, I love saying this word, the hypotenuse, and then your torso and arms are the one leg and your legs are the other leg, right? Triangle. So that's the downward facing dog, really easy. But balancing yourself as you let your hips drop and swing through your hands into an upward facing dog requires some control. Now, you might not be able to do it very well. Just try one and see if you can transition from downward facing dog to upward facing dog. It is a really healthy exercise in terms of your flexibility, in terms of your strength. It elevates your heart rate a little bit, and it's the last exercise we're going to do today. So I'm going to leave you as you think about the significance of the dynamic movement that takes you from that downward facing dog into the levitating position of your legs into upward facing dog. Once again, make sure that you depress your fingers and the top part of your palm as well as the heel of your hand, so that you don't, fatigue the wrist, cause problems in the lower part of your arm. But take some deep breaths here at the end and sit yourself into child's pose. I will be back in a few days with another podcast on the In Shape Fitness Show. So check it out a little bit later in the week. Have a great one. And again, if you come up with a really good name for that spinning around exercise, please let me know. BodybyInShape.com has a contact info page, or you can, write us into social media. All right. Have a great day.